Okay, welcome back, everyone. As we continue our Motzi Shabbos marathon, and we are ahead as we are holding on the Pei Bava Kama Daf, and we're holding by the word tsar, which is 10 lines from the top, 10 lines from the top of Daf Pei Bava Kama Daf, as we welcome our 31 Zoomers that are here this evening, and everybody here in Shul, and those that are on Facebook and Kol Loshin, and of course our wonderful audience on TorahAnytime.com. So we talked about where Chatzkel smeared a depilatory on his father's head, which causes his hair not to grow back, and we said he's chayiv chamisha devarim. So that means, Gedalia, could you take down this number, 845? 845-274-3068. 3068? Yeah, you maybe just call them and tell them that they're calling me in the middle of a shir. So the Gemara says, Tsar, we said that you're chayav for chamisha dvarim, for smearing the depilatory on your father's head. So chamisha dvarim means that you pay for pain. What pain is there smearing a depilatory? Tsar, the islay kartufnei bereishe, it's talking about where his father had cracks on his head, and therefore when he smeared the depilatory, it caused pain. Vitzavche, and he screamed, Ma'ano kartafne, from the depilatory got into the cracks. Says the Gemara, Ripui, healing, Deboy Asuye, because he has to heal the pain. I was wondering if you remembered. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Better late than never. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol niyeh b'dvaro.
So one Chayiv Misa for only blood with their parents, even if they cause them pain?
Yes. No Chayiv Misa unless there's a wound. So, got to tell Shimon's father to watch out. Ripui, where would there be healing? The Bayasuya, he has to cure the hurt that was made by getting the medicine, the depilatory, into the cracks in his head. But where's their unemployment? Sheves, this guy was a clown. He was a batchin. And he worked at weddings. And part of his routine was he made motions with his head. And because he had pain in his head, or maybe because they took the hair away, so Sheves davin merakid beikuve, he danced in bars. Deboy machve gavne aresha. No, not because he's bald, because that would be permanent. But deboy machve gavne aresha, he has to show different motions with his head. V'loy machve, and he can't show it me'ano kartufne because of the pain that he had from the medicine going in the cracks. Baishis. Baishis walks around like a baldy. Ain't loch Baishis gadol mizeh. Says the Gemara, this question that Rabbah asked, what's the din if there's temporarily paralysis, whether you have to pay nezek besides the unemployment, or milsa debayile leila Rabbah, that which was a shaila to Rabbah, pshita leila abaya la'akisa, was obvious to Abaya in one direction, or the Rava la'akisa, and to Rava in another direction. The Itmar, Hikeu al Yodai, if Marshall slugged him in the hand, Vitsimsa, and he got a temporary paralysis. V'sayf al-azar, it's going to come back. Abaya amanaisli sheves gedayla v'sheves katana. Now, Shevis Gedela means that he pays him because he's going to be worth less at the slave market, and he also pays him for the fact that even now, when he's lying in bed, he can't even be a Shemek Yeshuin. The fact that he can't pitch every day, he has to pay him for that. Itmar. As we welcome in Abe Arbach, Itmar. Hakiteya Yad Evid Ivri Shel Chaverei. If, let's say, Marshall cuts off the hand of Stephen's Evid Ivri. Now, an Evid Ivri has to work for Stephen for 6 years, and he cuts off the hand. So Abaya Aimer Noisen Lo Sheves Gedoylo LeEvid, the fact that for the rest of his life he won't be able to pitch for the New York Yankees, that goes to the Evid Ivri. The Sheves Ketana, and the fact that he won't be able to work now for his master, that he has to give l'Rav. Rav Amar, no. Hakol Yenosein LeEvid. We give everything to the Evid Ivri. But the fact that for 6 years the master is losing out. V'yilkach b'em karka. We take that money that we give to the Evid, we buy with it real estate. V'arav eichel peris, and the Rav enjoys the fruit of the real estate for the 6 years that the Evid is working with him. Now the Gemara says, Pshita piches eitzel atzmai. If it's only a loss for the Evid, but ve'etzel rabbi loy piches, it doesn't cost the master anything. For example, if he does something that just disfigures him, the poske l'reish une or l'reish nechire, cuts off the tip of his ear or the tip of his nose. So that doesn't hurt the master. He could still work. It just hurts him. Then akol atzim, everything goes to the Evid Ivri. Piches eitzel rabbi, but if it damages that now the master is not going to get benefit from him, plukta dabaya v'rava. That's machlokes Abaye and Rava. Rava says that, look, the master has to be reimbursed for the fact that he's losing 6 years of work, so we give it all to the Eved, but we buy karka, and during the 6 years, the master enjoys the usufruct of that karka. Abaye says, no, we and Abaye really short changes the master, because the master is only getting the value of a cucumber watchman while he's in bed, which is much less. Now we get to humiliation. Marshall, now we get to humiliation. I wonder why Marshall is not in his chair. Baishis, humiliation, hakol lefi ha'mevayish v'hamizbayish. It all goes according to the one that's doing the humiliating and the one that's getting humiliated. So the Gemara says, Mani, who's the author of our Mishnah? Mani masnisin le Reb Meir v'le Reb Yehuda le Reb Shimon. Because you'll see, according to Reb Meir, we don't say it depends what your social status is. We say everybody's children of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Ditnan v'kulan, all people, Rayan Isai Kilu Heim B'nei Chayrin, Sheyardim Nechseim, even if they're poor, we just view them as aristocrats that lost their money. Because they're all Mamleches Khan and V'gai Kaddish. Heim B'nei Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Divrei Meir. So obviously our mission is not going according to Reb Meir, because Reb Meir says everybody's the same. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, Hagadol Lefi Gadlai, if he's big, it's according to his bigness. Now that could be our Mishnah, but we're going to see it can't be Rabbi Yehuda, because our Mishnah says that if a blind person embarrasses, he's potter. I mean, if a blind person embarrasses, he's kayim. While Rabbi Yehuda holds a blind person that embarrasses is potter. We'll see that in a minute. Rabbi Shimon says Ashirin, wealthy people, well, we don't really view them as wealthy people, because wealthy people will ask will ask for the sky's the limit. They feel that their honor is. They'll ask for a king's ransom. We downgrade them. You could also lose your money. Poor people, we view them as a very low level. So Mani, who's the author of our Mishnah that says Akol Lefi HaMavayis Ramizbayish? Ira Meir, well, it can't be because Masnis and Ketani, it depends. Akol Lefi HaMavayis Ramizbayish. Rameir Kulu Badi Adoninan. Rameir says everybody's the same. Everybody's the children of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. V'Rab Yehuda, Masnis and Ketani HaMavayis is a Summa Chayiv. Our Mishnah says that if you embarrass a Summa, you're Chayiv. V'Ilu Rab Yehuda, I'm a Summa, ain't like Baishas. That a Summa that embarrasses, there's no humiliation. Elalav Reb Shimon. Therefore, it's only Reb Shimon. Says the Gemara, no. Afilu Tamer Reb Yehuda, it could be Reb Yehuda. Kiyam Reb Yehuda Summa ain't like Baishas. That means Lemishkel Minei. As we're going to see, that a Summa doesn't have humiliation means that if he humiliates someone, we don't take it away from him. We're going to learn that from Psukim. But if you embarrass a Summa, Yavinolei, that you pay. Says it says that if you embarrass a sleeping person, you're chayiv. The yoshin should be ish potter, but a yoshin that embarrasses someone is potter, and it says Summa in the Mishnah, and it doesn't make a distinction. V'loy ketani Summa shabayish potter. It doesn't say that a Summa that humiliated is potter, that humiliates his potter. It makes no difference if he's humiliating or if he's humiliated. Our Mishnah holds it's chayiv, and therefore Rabbi Yehuda says that a Summa that humiliates his potter is not going according to our Mishnah. You're right. The Mishnah is going according to Rabbi Shimon. Now, let's say Marshall intends to embarrass a minor, instead he embarrasses Mark. So Noisin legadol, he gives to Mark that which he would have paid for being mevayish the minor. In other words, he didn't mean to embarrass Mark, but he has to give to Mark the money that he would have given to if he would have embarrassed the minor. Levayish is an eved. If he had in mind to be mevayish's slave, or bayish's ben chayrin, and he embarrassed Mark, nice and ben chayrin, he gives to Mark to make bayishtei shalev, how much he would give to embarrass a slave. So the Gemara says again, Mani loy Reb Meir v'loy Reb Yehuda v'loy Reb Shimon. It doesn't seem to be going like Reb Meir, Reb Yehuda, or Reb Shimon. Because kosol kedaitach, when it says cotton, it means somebody who has very little fiscal value. Cotton b'nechasim. And gadol b'nechasim. Gadol means somebody that's wealthy. So obviously it's not Reb Meir, because Reb Meir says we view everybody the same as Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And if it's Rabbi Yehuda, it says that he has to pay Mark the value of embarrassing the slave, but Rabbi Yehuda holds you're not chayav for embarrassing the slave. Rabbi Yehuda, I'm rein lavadim baishas. Reb Shimon, Reb Shimon holds that if he had intended to embarrass one person, he embarrassed Mark, he's not chayav at all. Reb Shimon, my timer, because it's like killing. You're only chayiv if you kill the person that you intended to kill. You ambushed him, become a love, and you got up against him. If you didn't have a mind to kill him, you don't pay. It's only if you had in mind for Mark. She stretched out her hand, and held on to his private parts, and we darshan only if he intended to embarrass him. So the Gemara says, no, it could be going according to Rabbi Yehuda. If it's going according to Rabbi Yehuda says that if you embarrass a slave, you're not chayiv. He says, you're right. If you embarrass a slave, you're not chayiv. But we could evaluate the humiliation that the slave would have had and give that to Mark. The chikam Rabbi Yehuda ein lavadim boishes, that means l'meisavlu, to give it to them. Aval l'meishim, but to evaluate what their embarrassment would be, shaiminabu, to give it to Mark. The Iba Yisem, it could be going according to a mayor. You said according to a mayor, it makes no difference if you have a little property or a lot of property. When it says cotton guddle, it doesn't mean over here little property. It means a minor. The Iba Yisem, afilu temer mayor, mi sabit guddle b'nechasim. A lot of property and cotton b'nechasim, a little property, which according to a mayor would not be a difference, because he says we view them all as Avram Yitzchak and Yaakov, children of Avram Yitzchak Yaakov, like gadol mamish, and cotton is a minor, says the Gemara. But does a minor have any humiliation? The cotton barbaishasi. So we're talking about a child that does have humiliation, a 9-year-old. In kedamra papa de michlam, where if you embarrass him, umichlam. Hachanami here also, it's talking about the michlam, where you're going to embarrass him, and he gets embarrassment. Okay, new Mishnah, getting underway to the last quarter of our Motzi Shabbos Avodah, and this Rabbi say is the way to start a new week. This is, what could be better? Torah is Keneged Kulam. Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam. So a person could do a lot of things on a Motzi Shabbos. You could go for pizza, and you could go for ice cream, and you could do the laundry. I mean, you shouldn't do the laundry Motzei Shabbos, but I'm saying there's so many things that a person. There's so many things. A guy could go to a hockey game. There's so many things. That Mark, don't laugh. That's what he meant. I
got box sweets that are in the name of Rabbi Weiss.
Now,
what's the issue of the laundry Motzei Shabbos?
Before Chatzais, a woman shouldn't do laundry. We're not supposed to do malacha Motzei Shabbos before Chatzais, unless you need it for babies and stuff.
How about the husband?
You could put you in the washing machine.
It's that a woman shouldn't, or they shouldn't be done.
It's better not to do malacha Motzei Shabbos before Chatzais. Anyway, we welcome in Shlomo Meirov, who's joining us as we start the new Mishnah on Pei Vav Amud Beis. Marshall, I was never at a game. The only time I was in City Field was for the Internet Asifa. That's the only time I was in. I'm not saying that I have anything against going to a game if there's no Bittul Torah, but it happens to be I was never at any game.
Wow. Mariano Rivera was hosting that event, right?
Huh? Yeah.
Mariano Rivera was hosting.
Well, not in City Field. Not in City Field.
So you got to open up a special section there where the rabbi will come there and give Daf Yomi there.
No problem.
That's all.
Let's just do it.
Rebbe, younger than a 9-year-old can't experience busha?
No, he can. I'm just saying an example as a 9-year-old, because he's still a cotton. Younger than a 9-year-old certainly can, 100%. Already, children, when they start going into the corner in order to relieve themselves in their diapers, and they start hiding behind a chair, that already shows that they're feeling some kind of a shame. I don't know if you ever had that with their kids, that all of a sudden they started going behind the chair or behind. That's why Marshall, look, he's hiding behind the chair. Marshall, You should block your screen, Marshall. You should block your screen.
Actually, I hope your wife is not listening.
Anyway, so let's start the new Mishnah. Hamavayish es ha'orim. This is interesting. You embarrass a naked person, or Hamavayish es a summa, a blind person. Hamavayish es a yoshin, or you embarrass a sleeping person. Chayiv. In other words, there is, even if somebody is naked, he could still be embarrassed. The yoshin shebayish. Remember, embarrassing you're only chayiv if it's bekavana. So since a person that's sleeping doesn't have kavana, so yoshin shebayish pater. If a yoshin embarrasses someone, it's pater. Nafal min agag vehizik. If Marshall falls off a roof and damages a person, ubayish, and also knocks off his clothes, chayiv ala nezik. He's chayiv for the damage, but a pater al habayishis. He's pater for the humiliation because he's chayiv for the damage, even though he fell because adamu la'olam. But he's pater for the baishis because you're only chayiv for humiliation at shei mischaben. You're only chayiv for humiliation if you intended to do it.
This is getting close to that case in Yavamas.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Tan Rabbanan. Baishay orim. If he embarrasses him naked, chayiv. However, obviously it's not the same as if he was dressed. Ve'ena doima baishay orim. A person that's naked really doesn't have that much dignity. So the embarrassment is going to be left levaishay lavish, to embarrassing him clothed. Baishay bebeis hamerchas, if he embarrasses him in the bathhouse where people are usually undressed, chayiv. But ve'ena doima baishay bebeis hamerchas, it's not similar embarrassing him in the bathhouse levaishay b'shuk. So now the Gemara says, how do you embarrass a naked person? Amar baishay orim chayiv. So the Gemara says, what are you going to do to him more? He's standing there naked. Arim bar baishasu? Is one naked eligible for embarrassment? Now it's interesting. We could have answered this by saying, you revealed something embarrassing about him. So even though he's naked, he could still be embarrassed. That would be the way I would think, you know? So, but Amar Papa, my orim, what does it mean? Da'asa zika karchinu lamone. What happened is a woman was standing, and a wind came and blew up her skirt for a moment. Va'asahu dalinu tfei, and he went ahead and held it up so that people saw her longer, ubaishe, and therefore embarrassed her. So although she was already embarrassed, but this made it more pronounced. Baishe bebeis hamerchas, if he embarrasses in the bathhouse, chayiv. Again, ask the Gemara, if they're standing naked, beis hamerchas bar baishe, so how could there be embarrassment? Amra papa shabaisha al gavanar. This person was wading in to the water and lifted up their garments, so they were already in a compromising position, but the person pulled up the garment higher and really embarrassed the person. Boy Rav Abba bar Mamel, we said if you embarrass a sleeping person, you're chayiv. Why? Because when he wakes up and he was told that he was uncovered, he gets embarrassed. What happens if you embarrass him and he dies in his sleep? So therefore he never felt the shame. What's the din? Boy Rav Abba bar Mamel, Baisha Yoshin, if they embarrassed him while he was sleeping, umeis. He never woke up. Le'aleinu, he died in his sleep. Mao. So the Gemara says, what's the question? My kamabayile. Amar Rav Zvid, hachi kamabayile. Mishum kisufahu, is the chiyuv because when he wakes up, he feels shame. V'ameislei, he died, and therefore he never felt the shame. V'les like kisufa. Oidoma mishum zilusahu. He felt there was degradation. The fact is that he was uncovered and he was degraded. And even though he never knew it, so he never was shamed, but he received degradation. So Tajma, Rameir Aimer Cherish V'Kotten Yesh Lam Boishes, a deaf person and a minor has shame. Shaita, an imbecile, Ein Loi Boishes. So Iyamrit Bishlai Mishim Zilusa, degradation. Hainu Diktani Cotton, because there's degradation to the child, even though the child is not old enough to feel humiliation, but the child is degraded. Eliyamrit Mishim Kisufa, Cotton Barboishasu. Says my Mishim Zilusa, degradation, then even though the shaita doesn't have feelings, but he was degraded, Afilu Shaita Nami, says the Gemara, no. A shaita is completely degraded already. You can't give it more degradation. It's already 100%. Imre shaita ein lach boishes gedei lemezut. There's no greater degradation. However, mikol makom nifshim minei mishim ziluso. It's because of degradation. The mishim kisufa, cotton bar kisufa. Who says, well, yes, a cotton has shame. It's talking about an older cotton. Kedam rapapa de michlam, where you embarrass him, and he feels embarrassed. Hachanami de michlam. So therefore, there's no raya whether it's because of degradation or shame. Rapapa says, no, the question of where the person dies in his sleep is as follows. There has to be shame. But maybe you also pay for the shame of the family. Mishum kisufe didehu, you're paying for his shame, and since he never woke up, he never felt shame. And therefore you're not chayiv. The shame to the family. And having a relative uncovered is embarrassing. So again, the Gemara wants to bring a raya, Tajma, Cherish v'Kotten Yesh Loi Boishes, a deaf person, a minor has humiliation, Shaita Ein Loi Boishes, the imbecile doesn't have humiliation. Iyam Bishleim Misham Boishes Mishpacha, so that's how a child has embarrassment. Hainu Diktani Cotton. Eliyamrit Misham Kisufa, shame, Cotton Bar Boishes, so does a child have shame? Elamai Misham Boishes Mnei Mishpacha, then there should be Boishes even for a Shaita. Afilu Shaita Nami, says the family already has the full quota of embarrassment from the shaita. Uncovering him is not going to add anything. Shaita ein lach boishes gedei lemezut. Mikol makom nifshim minei de mishum boishes mishpacha. That's the shame of the family. The mishum kisufa, if it's for shame of the person, cotton bar kisufa, does a child have embarrassment? Amra papa in the michlam o michlam, where you embarrass him and he feels embarrassment. Vatanya, and indeed we learned that this is Rebbe Yomi Cherish Yesh Loi Boishes, a deaf person has embarrassment. Shaita Ein Loi Boishes, cotton, a minor, Pamim Yesh Loi Pamim Ein Loi. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends how old he is. Or the michlam michlam, if when you embarrass him he feels shame, then you're chayiv. Or the michlam, if he doesn't have shame, then you're not chayiv. Now, final Gemara for the evening. Hamavayish es asuma. If you embarrass a blind person, so the Mishnah says you're chayiv, but the Mishnah says v'yoshin shebayish pater, and it doesn't say that a summa that embarrasses is pater. So that implies that a summa that embarrasses is chayiv. Masnisin like Rabbi Yehuda. Mishnah is not like Rabbi Yehuda. The Tani Rabbi Yehuda is summa ein loi boishes. A blind person that embarrasses someone is not chayiv. That if a blind person kills someone unwittingly, he doesn't go to the Ari Miklat. Or mechayve malchus, he doesn't get malchus. Or mechayve misas bezdin, and he doesn't get executed. Wow. My time to Rabbi Yehuda. Gamer einecha me'edim zaymim. He learns out of Gzeir Shava einecha from edim zaymim. Now, obviously, a blind person can't be chayiv for edim zaymim because he can't see to give testimony. Ma'asam sumin lai, afhacha sumin lai. So also, he doesn't pay for humiliation. Now, how do we know that he doesn't pay for gullus? That he doesn't go into exile? The Tanya, Beloira ice, if he kills someone without seeing, prat l'suma that can see. Different Rabbi Yehuda. Rameir Amal Rabbi says asuma. Beloira ice comes to include a blind person. My time in Rabbi Yehuda. What's the reason Rabbi Yehuda holds that a blind person is exempt from going into Galus? Amalach, it says, if he comes with his friend in the forest to cut wood, and the blade flies off and kills him, and since it says anybody that comes in the forest, that implies Rafilu Suma. Because the Rahmana B'lai Reis, without seeing him, implying there has to be someone that could see, Limute, to exclude a blind person. For Rameir, he says, Kasser Rahmana B'lai Reis, without seeing, Limute, and then it says, Kasser Rahmana B'vli Das, without knowing. That means he would be able to know. Limute, that would also exclude a blind person. So that's two exclusions. And the din is having miyad achamiyad, vein miyad achamiyad el rabbi. So he holds a blind person does go into galus. Rabbi Yehuda says b'vli das comes to tell me. Rabbi Yehuda, oh b'vli das comes pratlam ischavenu dasa. That the only time that he goes into the Ari Miklat is if it was without intention. If it was with intention, even if there was no hasra, he doesn't go to the Ari Miklat. Chayve Mises Bezdin. How do we know that a blind person, according to Rabbi Yehuda, doesn't get capital punishment? Asya Reitzeach, he learns out Reitzeach from Chayve Goyas. And how do we know he doesn't get Malchus? Chayve Malchus, Asya Rasha, Mechayve Mises Bezdin. Okay, Rabbi said, what a big job this evening as we finish here, and now we're going to do the Mishnah Yomis.